Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. I came home one day and the plants were dead. Every single one of them. Not a note. Not a goodbye. Just 3 brown succulents on the windowsill, 2 wine glasses still in the sink, and the faint scent of her coconut shampoo in the hallway. The bed was made like she'd never slept in it. But she had. For years. She didn't take much. Just her charger, her journal, and the earrings I got her for our 3rd anniversary. Left the sweaters I always complimented. Left the books she never finished. Left me. At first, I thought it was a breakdown. Maybe she needed to drive out to her aunt's cabin or sleep in a parking lot with the windows down like she used to threaten during fights. But then I opened the closet. Half empty. No goodbye. Just space. And then it hit me. 2 nights before, I'd asked her if she wanted chicken or pasta, and she said, "I just need space." That was her answer to dinner. Space. Like I was a wall pressing in. Like she was suffocating in a house I scrubbed every Sunday while she scrolled on her phone pretending not to read texts that lit up her screen with names I never dared ask about. I should have said something. Demanded clarification. Instead, I said, "Okay," and boiled spaghetti. That was the last meal we had together. I remember because she didn't even finish it, just stared at the fork like it offended her. The funny thing is, I respected her wish. More than she ever respected me. She wanted space. So I gave her distance. A canyon. A silence so loud it swallowed her voice. I didn't block her number. I didn't unfollow her. I did worse. I became a ghost. And the first time she called, I didn't even flinch. The first call came 3 days after she vanished. I saw the screen light up, unknown number, and just watched it buzz across the table like some nervous insect. 5 rings. Voicemail. Then silence. No message. I made a sandwich. The second time, it was 2:12 a.m. Same number. No voicemail. By the 4th attempt, I started saving the numbers under odd names. Maybe her, still not talking, she's nervous again. I turned off vibration. Bought a landline. Stopped answering both. I didn't need to hear her voice. I knew exactly what she'd say. I could hear it in my head like it was stitched into my skull. I didn't mean to leave like that. I needed time to think. It wasn't about you. But it was always about me. Because I was there. I was the wallpaper of her life. Quiet, consistent, and invisible until she decided she hated the color. The real twist didn't come from her, though. It came from Dennis. Dennis from work. Guy who microwaves fish in the office kitchen and thinks every sentence is an invitation to overshare. I always avoided him. But that morning, he cornered me near the vending machine like a bloodhound who just caught the scent of drama. "You still with that girl? Jamie? Jody? The one with the eyes." "Jory," I muttered, regretting the conversation already. "Right, Jory. Yeah, I saw her last night. At the gas station on 5th. She was arguing with some dude in a Tesla. Loud. Real messy. She kept saying, 'You promised I wouldn't regret this.' Then she threw his keys." That was all I needed to hear. I didn't ask for more details. Didn't check security cameras or call friends or stalk her socials. I just walked back to my desk, logged out, and never returned. Never told anyone. Just vanished from that job the same way she vanished from our life. I spent that afternoon sitting in the back of my truck, parked near a dog park we used to walk past on Sunday mornings. It was cold, but I left the window open and let the wind slap me awake. I wanted to feel something. Anger, maybe. Vindication. But all I felt was relief. She had traded quiet for chaos. A warm bed for empty luxury. My silence for his shouting. And she was regretting it. But regret doesn't rewind time. It doesn't unkiss. It doesn't unlie. It doesn't unkill the version of me that used to believe her. Later that night, she called again. But this time, she left a message. It started with a long inhale. You know the kind, shaky, like someone just ran up the stairs or fought back tears too long. Then silence. Then her voice. Smaller than I remembered. Almost like she was talking to herself. "Wendell, I know you're not picking up, but I'm just leaving this in case you ever decide to listen. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I didn't know how to stay." She paused like she expected me to respond. Like the message could hear my thoughts. I leaned back in the chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling, heart absolutely still. "It's not what you think," she continued. "Okay, maybe it is. Maybe I made a mistake. But it wasn't about you. It was me. I needed to feel something again." There it was. That phrase. That tired, self-centered little grenade that gets tossed into marriages and friendships and families. I needed to feel something again. Like I was the one who'd gone numb. Like I was the problem because I didn't provide enough spark or drama or poetic disaster. I thought being with someone new would help me figure myself out, she said. But it didn't. He's not you. I didn't think I'd miss the smell of your garage, or your awful knock-knock jokes, or the way you overcook eggs like it's a war crime. But I do. I miss all of it. I stopped the message right there. Because here's the thing. It's easy to miss the quiet once the storm starts throwing chairs. Easy to long for boring when exciting turns volatile. Easy to regret when the consequences start to stack up. But what caught me off guard wasn't her apology. It was what I found the next morning on my windshield. It was a note, folded into quarters, stuck under the wiper like a parking ticket. No envelope. Just my name. Not Wendell. Not Hun. Just the cold precision of Wendell in her handwriting. Inside it said, "Please, just one conversation. I'll wait tonight. You know where." And beneath that, nothing. No phone number. No explanation. No signature. I read the note 3 times. My first instinct was to burn it. My second was to laugh. But my third was to remember exactly where she meant. There's only one place she ever referred to that way. You know where. And it was a tiny, half-abandoned overlook 20 minutes outside town, past the old radio tower. We used to go there to escape. It was our nowhere spot. No cell service. No headlights. Just wind and rocks and the hum of a town too far below to hear us. If she was there, she wanted something more than closure. And for reasons I still don't understand, I went. But I didn't go empty-handed. The road to the overlook hadn't changed. Same cracked pavement. Same squeal from the loose guardrail halfway up. But I had changed. I didn't drive like a man going to save his marriage. I drove like I was heading to an autopsy. I didn't bring flowers. I didn't dress up. I didn't even wear cologne, the kind she used to say smelled like trust. I brought a thermos of coffee, 2 paper cups, and something she'd probably forgotten I ever kept. The wind hit harder up there than I remembered. I parked and sat in the truck for a minute before cutting the engine. The silence that followed was thick, almost alive. Then I saw her. She was already there, sitting on the hood of her own car, arms crossed against the chill, staring out into nothing. The second she heard my door shut, her head snapped toward me like a reflex. For a moment, she looked scared. I wondered what she expected, me in tears? Me with a ring box? A gun? Instead, I walked up, poured coffee into both cups, and handed her one like we were just 2 strangers waiting for the sunrise. She took it, but didn't say thank you. Just stared at the horizon. It was her move. I wasn't going to open this dance. "I shouldn't have asked you to come," she finally said. "Then why did you?" She didn't answer right away. She looked older. Not aged, just worn. Tired in the way only people who hurt others can be. The kind of tired that seeps into your voice and makes you apologize for things no one knows about yet. "I thought you deserved an explanation." "Then say it," I said flat. Out loud. "Say what you did." Her eyes didn't flinch. "I cheated on you." There it was. The dead thing between us finally had a name. "More than once?" I asked. "Yes." "With the same guy?" "No." I took a slow sip of coffee. She watched me like it hurt her to see I wasn't breaking. She always expected me to cry first. That was our dynamic. I cried. She comforted. I begged. She forgave. I bent. She walked. But not this time. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the thing I brought. Not a weapon. Just an envelope. One of those big yellow ones with a string tie top. I handed it to her. She looked at it like it might bite. "What's this?" she asked. "Proof," I said. She opened it, confused, pulling out the contents one by one. A printed screenshot of her texts to 3 different guys. A copy of the hotel receipt with her name on it. A still frame from a grainy parking lot camera of her kissing someone against the door of my truck. I'd collected it quietly. Months ago. Before I left. Before she even asked for space. I had known. Deep down. I just didn't want to admit it until she gave me permission to stop pretending. She flipped through it in silence. When she got to the last page, a handwritten letter from her cousin Lyle, confessing she had lied to cover for her, her face cracked. "I didn't know you had all this," she whispered. "Of course you didn't," I said. "Because I never planned to use it." "Then why?" "Because I wanted you to see it," I interrupted. "I wanted you to look at it and realize you didn't leave a clueless man behind. You left a man who knew, who stayed silent not because he was weak, but because he was done." She looked like she might throw up. I almost pitied her, but not enough to stop. "You thought I was boring," I said. Predictable. Easy to replace. You said you needed space. Well, here's what space looks like, Jory. It's cold. It's lonely. And it doesn't beg to be filled. Tears welled in her eyes. Not crocodile tears, real ones. But they came too late. You can't cry your way back into a life you burned down on purpose. I didn't come here to forgive you, I said, voice steady. I came here so you'd never again convince yourself I was too blind to see you. Then I turned, walked back to the truck, and drove off. She didn't follow me. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. I didn't check the rearview mirror on the way down. Didn't want to know if she was still standing there, or if she had collapsed in her shame or rage, or whatever cocktail of feelings betrayal brews. I just drove, past the tower, past the blinking red lights, back into a town that hadn't even noticed we were breaking. I slept in the shop that night, the one connected to my uncle's old barn. It still smelled like rust and motor oil and burned toast from when the kettle shorted out years ago. I locked the door, unplugged the landline, and put my phone in the microwave. Not to destroy it, just to make sure I wouldn't hear it buzz. That silence. It was my sanctuary now. But silence doesn't last long when someone's desperate. At 6:13 a.m., I found an envelope taped to the inside of the garage door. It hadn't been there at midnight. I checked the cameras, the ones I installed during a string of tool thefts last winter. Sure enough, at 4:47 a.m., a figure approached in a hoodie, stood there for 43 seconds, taped something to the door, then walked back toward a silver sedan idling on the side road. No plates visible. She hadn't followed me. She had hunted me. Inside the envelope, a single sheet of paper ripped from a yellow notepad. Just one sentence. You don't get to disappear, Wendell. No name. No signature. But it was her handwriting. I knew it like I knew the sound of her laugh when it was real, not the forced kind she gave to strangers. The thing is, she was wrong. I didn't get to disappear. I already had. What she couldn't stand was that I did it before she could chase someone newer. That night, I made a decision I should have made months ago. I packed up the shop, locked the drawers, shut down the electricity, left a note for my landlord, gone fishing, for good. Then I went home. Not our home. The place she had infected with perfume and apologies and lies. No, I drove 5 hours north to a little cabin that belonged to my grandfather, tucked behind a frozen lake, deep enough in the woods that GPS just gives up. The place hadn't been touched in years, but the key still worked. I didn't light a fire. I didn't unload anything except one duffel bag, a lantern, and a stack of old notebooks I'd been meaning to read since she first asked for space. I wasn't hiding. I was healing. In my own time. On my own terms. But healing is never linear. Because 2 days later, she found me. No warning. Just a knock on the cabin door. Soft, like it wasn't meant to be heard, but still impossible to ignore. I stayed frozen, just listening. A second knock. Then a third. Then silence. Then, Wendell, I know you're in there. My stomach turned. Not because I was afraid, but because the voice wasn't hers. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. The voice outside the cabin wasn't Jory's, but it still carried her shadow. Something familiar, something too close to home to ignore. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just waited. Whoever was out there must have heard the hesitation in the wooden floorboards, because they didn't knock again. I'm not here to hurt you, the voice said. Male, calm, controlled. But you should know she's not done. My hand was already wrapped around the hunting knife I kept under the counter. Not because I thought I'd need it, but because the part of me that used to trust people had gone completely silent. He kept talking. She told me where you'd be. Said you'd come here eventually. Said you always ran to silence when things got hard. My jaw clenched. That line, ran to silence. It was something Jory used to say during fights. She'd scream. I'd shut down. That was our loop. Our curse. You're Wendell, right? He asked. Still, I said nothing. Then he said it. I'm the first guy she cheated on you with. The original mistake, as she calls it. I opened the door. He was taller than me, of course. Dark coat, red eyes like he hadn't slept in days, holding a half-burned cigarette between two fingers like it was the only thing keeping him from unraveling. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, just looked exhausted in a way I recognized immediately, like someone who'd been gutted from the inside out, but was still expected to stand upright and speak politely. Name's Clint, he said. I figured you'd want to hear the rest of it. Because she's rewriting everything. He stepped inside without being invited. I didn't stop him. He sat at the small wooden table and pulled out a USB drive from his coat pocket, set it down between us like a loaded weapon. She's planning something. Some twisted redemption arc, wants to be the victim now, telling people you cheated, that you were emotionally abusive. Says she left because she was afraid of you. I laughed. Just once. Loud and bitter. I know, he said. It's insane. I didn't believe her either, until she tried to convince my girlfriend the same thing. He lit another cigarette, even though the cabin clearly hadn't seen open windows in a decade. She spins stories, Wendell. Not lies. Stories. Ones with just enough truth to stick. She told me she loved me while she was still sleeping in your bed. Told me she was divorced when she wasn't. And when I finally caught her lying, really caught her, she said you were the manipulator, that you gaslit her into staying. I didn't say a word, just stared at the USB drive. What's on it? I finally asked. Recordings. Screenshots. A few videos she didn't know I had. One from your garage, actually. That got my attention. She was meeting someone there, he said. Not me. Someone else. She told me it was just an old friend. But the audio says otherwise. I didn't want to hear it, but I also could not hear it. This wasn't about love anymore, or betrayal, or even revenge. It was about the truth, and how far someone would go to erase it. She's not trying to win you back, he said. She's trying to erase you. Clean slate. Recast herself. And you? I asked. Why are you here? He flicked ash into an old coffee mug. Because I lost everything too. And I figured, if she's rewriting history, maybe the people she erased should compare notes. He slid the USB toward me. Then he left. No dramatics. No handshake. Just a man whose own storm had collided with mine. And I hadn't even opened the files yet. It took me hours to build up the nerve to plug in the USB drive. I didn't even own a laptop anymore. I'd left most of my tech behind on purpose, as a symbol of cutting loose. But there was an old tower PC in the storage room of the cabin. Dusty. Half-rusted. The kind my grandfather used to check the weather and play chess with strangers before the internet got mean. I booted it up, connected a second-hand monitor, and waited while it wheezed to life like a dying animal. When the screen finally flickered on, I inserted the USB and opened the folder labeled You Should Know. There were 12 items inside. 5 video files. 4 audio clips. 3 screenshots. I clicked on the first video, garage_cam2. MOV. It was grainy, black and white, dated 4 months before she ever told me she needed space. The camera angle was high, pointed toward the back entrance of my shop. I watched as jewelry pulled up in my truck, the same one she used to complain smelled like old regret. But she wasn't alone. A man got out of the passenger side. Not Clint. Someone else. Younger, clean-shaven, wore a hoodie pulled tight around his face like he knew there was a camera and didn't care. They walked inside together, laughing, playful, her hands on his chest. She looked 20 years younger, reborn, and not once did she glance around nervously. This wasn't an affair fueled by guilt. It was a field trip. The clip cut off at the moment they disappeared behind the storage shelves. I clicked the next file, voice_note_11. MP3. It was her voice, recorded mid-call without her knowledge. Wendell? He's safe. Boring. Reliable. That's what I liked about him in the beginning. But you can't build a life on oatmeal, you know? Eventually, you need steak. You need spice. Wendell is a blanket. You're fire. There was laughter. Not hers. A man's voice, distorted but clear enough. You ever think he suspects? A pause. Then, even if he did, he wouldn't leave. He doesn't know how to leave. That's what makes it so easy. I hit pause. That one line. He doesn't know how to leave. It hit harder than anything she'd ever screamed at me during an argument. Because it was true. Or it had been. I had always waited. Always forgiven. I thought loyalty meant staying planted no matter how badly someone tried to dig you up. I played the next clip. It was a screen recording of her DMs, social media messages, time-stamped while she was still sleeping in my bed, kissing my cheek in the mornings, texting me heart emojis, while telling another man she was trapped with a roommate and planning her escape. My name was never mentioned. I wasn't even a villain in her story. I was a footnote, a plot device. I watched all 12 files. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there, completely still, as if movement might break whatever spell was holding me together. By the time the final clip ended, it was after midnight. The cabin was silent. The kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. And that's when the power cut out. Total black. No storm. No wind. Just sudden, complete darkness. My first thought wasn't the breaker tripped. My first thought was, she found the cabin. Then I heard it. One single knock. Not on the front door, but the back window. That knock at the window? It never came again. I stood frozen for at least 5 minutes, not breathing, not blinking. My hand hovered over the old hunting knife, but I never touched it. I didn't need to, because something in me had shifted. I wasn't afraid anymore. I moved slowly, checking the cabin room by room. Nothing. No broken branches. No tire tracks in the snow. Just silence. The power came back on an hour later. Probably just an old fuse. But the timing? It was almost poetic. And I realized something as I stood in that flickering yellow light. I wasn't being haunted by her. I was being haunted by the version of myself that stayed too long. The man who forgave too much. The man who confused love with endurance. So I did something that surprised even me. I wrote her back. Not a message. Not a voicemail. A letter. I didn't say I hated her. I didn't accuse her. I didn't try to make her feel guilt or shame or fear. I just told her the truth. That I had loved her. That I had let that love blind me. That I forgave her, but would never forget. That her chapter in my story had ended, and that she would no longer be the author of how I saw myself. I sent the letter to her old P.O. box. Didn't sign it with love. Just W. Then I got to work. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt the cabin. Fixed the roof. Repainted the walls. Rewired the power system. I cut wood. Learned to cook something other than eggs. I read books. Real books. The kind that make you pause after every chapter and stare at the ceiling. Clint called once. Said he was heading west to start over. Offered to stay in touch. I told him no offense, but I didn't need reminders. He understood. Winter melted into spring, and the lake outside finally thawed. One morning, I went out early, barefoot, holding coffee in both hands, and just stood at the edge of the dock. And for the first time in what felt like a decade, I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about me. The Wendell she never took the time to know. The one she called oatmeal because he didn't set things on fire. But here's the truth. Oatmeal keeps people warm. Oatmeal sticks. Oatmeal survives. A few months later, I moved back to town. Quietly. No announcement. I reopened the shop, but rebranded it. Wendell's Repairs and Rebuilds. A little cheesy, I know, but it felt right. And then something strange happened. People came. Not just old customers. New ones. People who liked the way I listened. Who wanted the kind of quiet reliability that never looked exciting on the surface, but always showed up. One afternoon, a woman walked in with a broken lamp. Her name was Erin. She had a scar on her chin and a laugh that didn't try too hard. She made a joke about the coffee machine being older than her dog. I smiled. She smiled back. We talked for an hour. She never asked about my past. And I didn't bring it up, because it no longer defined me.